A chilling Halloween night in the small town of Hollowbrook, a group of children decided to brave the notorious Hollowbrook Lane for their annual trick-or-treating adventure. The legend that shrouded this dark alley had been passed down for generations, but the thrill of the unknown was too enticing for these brave youngsters. As the moon hung low in the inky sky, casting eerie shadows on the autumn leaves, the children began their journey. Led by Tommy, a fearless 13-year-old known for his leadership, they cautiously entered Hollowbrook Lane. The first house they encountered was an old, decrepit mansion, with a rotting wooden porch and windows that looked as though they hadn't seen light in centuries. As they climbed the creaking steps, Tommy couldn't help but notice the peculiar silence that surrounded them. No birds chirped, no wind rustled the leaves. Only the soft rustling of their costumes filled the air. Tommy rang the doorbell, and a sudden gust of cold wind swept through them, extinguishing their jack-o'-lanterns. The children exchanged nervous glances as the massive oak door slowly creaked open, revealing the sinister figure that stood beyond. A woman, draped in a tattered black cloak, greeted them with a hauntingly sweet smile. Her skin was as pale as the moonlight, and her eyes were like dark pools of endless abyss. She held a large bowl filled with candy, but there was something off about the sweets she offered. They glowed with an unnatural, ghostly light. One by one, the children hesitantly reached for the candy, their fingers trembling. As they placed it in their bags, they noticed the old woman's whispers under her breath. She chanted strange incantations and mumbled in a language they couldn't understand. With their bags full, the children quickly thanked the woman and hurried away from the sinister mansion. But as they walked down Hollowbrook Lane, an eerie fog rolled in, obscuring their vision and muffling their footsteps. Suddenly, they heard faint, distant laughter, like the echoing cries of lost souls. The children turned to see the woman from the mansion, now joined by other spectral figures, following them with a menacing pace. Panicking, the children raced through the dense fog, desperately searching for an escape. But the fog seemed to swallow them, obscuring their surroundings and making it impossible to find their way out. The laughter of the ghosts grew louder, echoing through the darkness. In their frenzied escape, the children stumbled upon an ancient, crumbling graveyard at the end of Hollowbrook Lane. The tombstones were etched with names they recognized from their town's history. The spectral figures were closing in on them, their ghostly fingers reaching out. With no other option, Tommy and his friends huddled together among the tombstones, clutching their candy bags, and recited words from the rhyme they had heard from their grandparents. A rhyme said to protect against malevolent spirits on Halloween. The ghosts swirled around them, wailing and howling, unable to breach the protective barrier created by the rhyme. With each verse, the spirits grew weaker and more distant until they finally dissipated into the fog. Exhausted but safe, the children emerged from the graveyard to find themselves back on the familiar streets of Hollowbrook, the fog and ghosts gone without a trace. They hurried back to their homes, but they knew they had encountered something beyond the ordinary. As the years went by, the story of their Halloween night on Hollowbrook Lane became a chilling legend, a warning to anyone who dared to venture there on All Hallows Eve. And the children who faced the ghosts that night never looked at candy the same way again, for the candies they received from that mysterious woman had a strange, ghostly glow that never faded. In the cozy little town of Meadowbrook, Halloween was a celebrated occasion, and the highlight of the season was the annual trip to the famous Meadownook Pumpkin Patch. Families would gather to select their pumpkins for carving and take part in the hayrides and spooky mazes. But one fateful Halloween, the pumpkin patch revealed a dark secret. The story began with a group of friends, including Sarah, Mike, and their younger sibling, Lily, who visited the pumpkin patch with their parents. It was a sunny afternoon, and the patch was bustling with excitement. Children roamed the fields, searching for the perfect pumpkin, while their parents chatted among themselves. As the day turned into evening, the friends noticed something peculiar about the patch. The pumpkins seemed to watch them, their carved faces shifting as if they were alive. Sarah and Mike thought it was just their imagination, but Lily was convinced the pumpkins were trying to tell them something. When darkness fell, the patch transformed into a magical place, with jack-o'-lanterns lighting up the pathways, casting eerie glows. The friends decided to explore the patch on their own, promising to meet their parents at the entrance later. As they wandered deeper into the pumpkin patch, the atmosphere became unsettling. The carved faces on the pumpkins looked angrier, and the friends felt a strange energy in the air. They stumbled upon a hidden grove filled with gigantic pumpkins. These pumpkins were different, much larger and more malevolent looking. Suddenly, a shadowy figure emerged from behind the massive pumpkins. It was the patch keeper, an old man in ragged clothes, with a long, twisted staff. He warned them of the patch's dark secret, revealing that it was once a burial ground for witches. The witches' spirits had been trapped in the pumpkins, and every year they sought a way to break free. The patch keeper told the friends that if they didn't find a way to appease the spirits by the stroke of midnight, the pumpkins would consume their souls. With trembling hearts, they decided to help the trapped spirits. They searched for the heart of the pumpkin patch, where they found a circle of ancient stones. With the patch keeper's guidance, they performed a ritual to free the spirits. It involved lighting a special candle and reciting an incantation. As they did, the pumpkins' faces transformed into peaceful expressions, and the eerie energy dissipated. With minutes to spare, the friends heard the distant chime of midnight. The patch keeper smiled and thanked them for breaking the curse. The pumpkin patch returned to its normal, cheerful self. When they returned to their parents, they shared their adventure, but nobody believed them. It seemed like a typical Halloween story. However, the friends knew the truth. The Meadownook pumpkin patch held a dark secret, and they had saved it from the witch's curse. To this day, the friends return to the patch every Halloween to honor the spirits they freed, and they share the legend of the pumpkin patch's dark secret as a cautionary tale to all who dare to explore its mysteries. On a dark and misty Halloween night in the quiet town of Willowville, a group of friends, led by Jenny, a brave 12-year-old, set out for a night of trick-or-treating. They followed the winding streets, going from house to house, filling their bags with sweet treats. As the moon hung in the sky, they stumbled upon an old, neglected house that stood at the end of a shadowy alley. The house had a reputation in town. It was said to be haunted. It was covered in cobwebs and had an eerie, abandoned look about it. Curiosity got the better of them, and they decided to approach the house, determined to prove their bravery. They climbed the creaky steps to the porch and hesitantly rang the rusty doorbell. The door slowly creaked open, revealing an elderly woman in a tattered, witch-like costume. She held a bowl of candy with an odd, otherworldly glow. The kids couldn't resist the temptation and reached out to take some. The candies tasted strange, a mix of sweet and bitter, and they gave off a faint, eerie light. The woman smiled at them with a wicked grin, her eyes gleaming mysteriously. She muttered cryptic words under her breath that sent shivers down the kids' spines. Quickly, the kids thanked the woman and hurried away from the haunted house, their bags filled with the peculiar candy. As they continued their adventure through Willowville, they couldn't shake off a feeling of unease. The candies they had taken seemed to whisper to them in the quiet of the night. They decided to head home, but the path they had taken seemed different. The streets twisted and turned in unusual ways, and the houses appeared unfamiliar. It was as if they had stepped into a different part of town. Fear gripped them as they realized they were lost. In the distance, they heard faint, ghostly laughter. The kids turned to see the old woman from the haunted house, now joined by other eerie figures, approaching them with sinister intent. Desperation pushed them to run through the ever-changing streets, searching for a way out. But Willowville seemed to stretch endlessly. The laughter of the ghosts grew louder and closer, echoing in the darkness. In their search for escape, the kids stumbled upon an overgrown, eerie graveyard. The tombstones bore unfamiliar names, and the ghosts were hot on their heels. They knew they needed to do something to protect themselves. Jenny remembered an old rhyme, passed down from her grandmother, and the friends joined hands to chant it. As they did, the spirits encroached on them, but the rhyme formed a protective barrier. The ghosts wailed and howled, unable to reach them. With each verse, the spirits grew weaker, and the children's surroundings started to return to normal. They were back on familiar streets, far from the haunted house. They hurried back home, vowing never to eat the strange candies again. The candies remained in their bags, glowing with an eerie light, a constant reminder of their terrifying Halloween night. They never spoke of it, but the legend of the haunted candy from the old woman's house lived on in Willowville, a chilling tale of Halloween treats gone horribly wrong.